Okay, remember when those robot vacuums were the next big thing? Supposed to, like, totally change your life, right? Never lift a finger again, that's what I thought.
Huh.
I was practically convinced it would write this whole deep dive for me, but, spoiler alert, it did not. But it does remind me, that whole thing with robot vacuums reminds me of all the buzz around Pi Network right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of hype out there.
It's like everywhere you turn, there's another article, saying it's either the future of finance or the next big crypto flop. It's tough to know what to think.
It really is, yeah.
So you're in the right place if you want to cut through all that noise, because today we're diving deep into Pi Network. We're going to see if it actually lives up to all the hype.
Sounds good to me.
All right, so before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start with the basics. What is Pi Network, and why are people so fired up about it?
So, at its core, it's a cryptocurrency project.
Mm.
Kind of Bitcoin, but with a twist.
Okay, a twist, huh?
Yeah. The big difference, the big selling point, is that Pi claims you can mine it. Mining is that process of creating new coins.
Yeah, right.
And they say you can do all that just using your smartphone.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a way lower barrier to entry than traditional crypto mining, all that stuff that needs powerful computers, tons of energy.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've heard about that. It's a whole thing. So it's trying to make cryptocurrency more accessible. That's the idea.
Exactly. Much more accessible to everyday people.
Makes sense. Okay, so that's Pi Network in a nutshell, but I keep hearing about this Web3 thing. Is that connected to Pi somehow?
Oh, you got it, yeah. Pi Network wants to be a major player in that whole Web3 movement.
Okay, but like, what even is Web3?
Think of it like this. Web3 is all about creating a more decentralized internet.
Okay.
Decentralized how?
Right now, you've got these big companies controlling a lot of what we do online, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Web3 is trying to shift that power back to us, the users.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah. Imagine a world where you actually have more control over your data, your online identity, more control over how you interact with the internet as a whole.
Yeah, that'd be nice for a change.
Right. That's the dream of Web3, and Pi Network is trying to position itself as a core part of that future. Okay, I'm starting to see how this all fits together now, but being part of the future, that's a pretty vague goal. What are Pi Network's concrete plans? Like, what are they actually trying to do?
Yeah, so they've actually laid out some seriously ambitious goals.
Oh, really? Like what?
They basically set their sights on 3 major targets.
3 major targets. Lay it on me.
All right, so number 1, being a driving force behind this whole Web3 transition we were talking about.
Okay, that's a big one for sure.
Yeah. Number 2, becoming the most widely used peer-to-peer payment system, like in the world.
Wow. Okay, so they're swinging for the fences, huh? What's number 3?
And eventually, even establishing Pi as a global currency.
Hold on, a global currency, like replacing the dollar, the euro.
That's the idea.
Wow, that's a pretty bold statement when you actually stop and think about it.
We actually have a source here. It's called Where Did Money Come From?
Mm.
And it talks about the evolution of money and how it took centuries for currencies to become standardized within countries, let alone globally.
That's a really good point. It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? So are they just like throwing darts at a board here, you know what I mean? Or is there any real chance they could pull this off?
Well, a lot hinges on their upcoming mainnet launch.
Mainnet launch. What is that exactly?
This is basically Pi Network's graduation ceremony, you could say.
Graduation ceremony? What do you mean?
Up until now, Pi has been in a testing phase, kind of like a beta version of a new app, right?
Right.
But the mainnet refers to the official, fully functional blockchain network.
Okay, I see.
Once Pi launches on the mainnet, people will be able to make direct transactions using Pi. Developers can start building real-world applications on the platform, and the whole system becomes a lot more secure and efficient.
Okay, so it sounds like the mainnet launch is the moment of truth for Pi Network.
Yeah, pretty much.
No pressure or anything. But with all this talk about global currencies and blockchain technology, I have to ask, what's actually backing up the value of Pi? Like, what's it actually worth?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Unlike traditional currencies that are usually backed by governments or assets like gold, the value of cryptocurrencies is largely determined by, well, us.
You mean supply and demand?
Exactly. It's all about how much people believe in the project and its potential. The more people who want to use and hold Pi, the higher the price could go. And that brings us to all the speculation swirling around Pi's future value.
Oh, yeah. I've seen headlines about Pi coin hitting hundreds of dollars. We even have a source here, Stormgain, predicting it could reach $300 or more. But then you've got others, like Cohen Dataflow, being way more cautious.
Right. And it's important to remember that the crypto market is notoriously volatile. It's a bit of a roller coaster ride. Trying to predict where a cryptocurrency will land is like trying to predict the weather months in advance. There's too many factors at play.
So while Pi Network's goals are certainly intriguing, it sounds like there's a whole lot of wait and see involved. But let's say, for argument's sake, that Pi does take off. What are some of the hurdles they'd have to clear along the way?
Well, one of the biggest challenges for any cryptocurrency, especially one with global ambitions like Pi, is regulation.
Regulation, right?
Governments around the world are still trying to figure out how to handle cryptocurrencies. And Pi's goal of becoming a global currency could put them in the crosshairs of regulators.
What do you mean by crosshairs? Like, what kind of regulations could trip them up?
Think about things like financial stability, consumer protection, and preventing money laundering. Governments want to make sure that new financial systems, even decentralized ones like Pi Network, play by the rules. And these regulations can vary wildly from country to country.
That makes sense. It's not like Pi can just launch a global currency without, like, passports and visas for its digital coins, right?
Exactly.
So, aside from jumping through regulatory hoops, what other challenges do you see on the horizon for Pi Network?
Competition is a big one. Pi is entering a crowded space with established cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum, which have a huge head start in terms of development, adoption, and infrastructure. Pi will have to offer something truly unique to convince people to switch over or adopt a completely new cryptocurrency.
It's almost like they're trying to build a new smartphone from scratch. But Apple and Samsung already have a loyal customer base, right?
Exactly. And on top of that, there are the inherent challenges of building a secure and scalable blockchain network. Pi claims to have solutions for these, but the technology is still relatively new. Proving its resilience in the real world is crucial.
So security and scalability, those are mostly technical hurdles, right? What do they actually mean for everyday users?
Well, security is all about protecting people's funds and data. You've probably heard about cryptocurrency hacks and scams.
Yeah, definitely.
Pi Network needs to ensure its platform is robust enough to withstand those kinds of threats.
And scalability. That sounds like it could be a problem if Pi wants to be used by, well, everyone on the planet.
Right. Scalability refers to a blockchain's ability to handle a large number of transactions quickly and efficiently. Think about what happens when a website gets overloaded with traffic.
Right, things slow down.
Exactly. Things slow down, or worse, the site crashes. Pi will need to demonstrate that its technology can handle the demands of millions or even billions of users making transactions simultaneously.
It seems like for every exciting possibility, there's a potential roadblock waiting around the corner. It's kind of a lot to wrap your head around.
It definitely can be. But remember, skepticism and challenges are part and parcel of any disruptive technology. Even the internet, which we now take for granted, faced its fair share of doubters in the early days.
It's easy to forget that. But we're not here to just rehash the history of the internet. We're here to unpack Pi Network and what it all means for you, our listeners. So let's shift gears and talk about what you need to know if you're considering dipping your toes into the world of Pi. Okay, so let's say someone is listening right now and they're thinking, man, this Pi Network thing is really interesting. Maybe I should check it out. What would you tell them? Like, what are the pros and cons they should be thinking about?
Well, the biggest thing Pi Network has going for it right now is how accessible it is.
Accessible how?
You can literally download the app and start mining Pi on your phone in minutes. Seriously.
When it's free.
Totally free. You don't need to buy any special equipment or be some kind of tech wizard.
That's pretty cool, especially in the world of cryptocurrency. It can be kind of intimidating, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But what about the downsides? I mean, we've talked about a few already, but...
Right. Honestly, the biggest one is that there are still so many unknowns.
Like what?
Like, we just don't know how this whole thing is going to play out, you know?
Yeah.
Will Pi Network actually hit those ambitious goals? Will the value of Pi coin go through the roof or totally crash and burn?
It's anyone's guess at this point.
Exactly.
So it's that classic early adoption thing.
Yep.
Get in on the ground floor, maybe get those huge rewards, or wait and see, potentially miss out entirely.
That's the dilemma. And that's exactly why it's so important to really do your research and don't get your hopes up too high.
Manage those expectations.
Yes. We actually looked at this source called Mining Pi Network, Then Stop. And they had some really solid advice for anyone thinking about getting involved.
Oh, yeah. What did they say?
They stressed how crucial it is to really get what the risks are, not get caught up in all the hype, and probably most importantly, don't invest more than you'd be okay with losing.
That's good advice for any investment, to be
Oh,
honest.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But especially with how unpredictable crypto can be.
Yeah, for sure. It's like that old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah,
Especially a
definitely.
basket made of like digital money that we're not even sure about yet. Okay, so besides not betting the farm, what else should people keep in mind about Pi?
It's important to remember that Pi Network isn't just about making a quick buck. It's about potentially being a part of this much bigger shift in how we use the internet, how the global economy works, even.
Right, that whole Web3 revolution we were talking about?
Exactly. It's about more than just money. It's about decentralization, users having control, all that.
It's about sticking it to the man.
Well, there's some of that too. But seriously, if you're considering Pi, ask yourself, do you believe in this idea of a future where things are more decentralized?
And are you willing to be a part of it, even with all the uncertainty and the risks? It's
Exactly.
kind of a leap of faith, but then again, weren't all the big technological leaps kind of like that?
Totally. And that brings like a really interesting question to think about as we wrap things up here. What if Pi Network actually pulls it off, even just one of those big goals?
Yeah.
5 years from now, how different do you think our digital lives could be?
Whoa, that's a big one to consider.
It really is.
What comes to mind for me is, what if Pi actually does become this widely used global currency? How would that change things like international transactions, people in countries with currencies that aren't so stable, even just like everyday purchases?
It's crazy to think about.
It is crazy. Or what if Pi Network ends up being the foundation for a whole bunch of new decentralized apps? That could be a whole new wave of innovation, right?
Absolutely.
New platforms for social media, online shopping, anything you can think of.
And all built on the idea of users having control and ownership.
It's kind of exciting and a little scary to think about all the possibilities, to be
Oh,
honest.
yeah, definitely. But that's what happens with these big technological shakeups. They have the power to totally change the world in ways we probably can't even imagine right now.
Totally. And whether Pi Network is the one to make it happen or it just fades away, it's definitely got people talking about the future of the internet, cryptocurrency, the global economy.
It's been a really interesting conversation.
Absolutely. So there you have it. We dove deep into the world of Pi Network. We talked about their ambitious plans, the potential roadblocks, even tried to imagine how it could change our digital lives. But the conversation doesn't end here. We want to hear from you. What do you think? Is Pi Network the future of finance, or is it just a fad? Let us know. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep those minds open, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the world around you.